What's going on, everybody? Fedor here from 3D Print SOS. Welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we are taking a look at the T1 Pro by FLSun. This is an amazing Delta machine that's fully enclosed. It actually comes as a kit, so you do have to put some parts together, and I did that in a live stream. You can catch that popping up somewhere above me here if you're interested to see what that boxing experience was like and the initial print was like. But this is not my first FLSun machine. I've actually had the Super Racer years ago when Bowden extruders were a thing, and then shortly after that the V400. And actually I still have the V400. It's hidden behind my clone over there, and I still use it. Great machine, still really fun to watch, and has been very reliable over the years. And this, alongside with another machine that they have, the Q1 and Q1 Pro, these two machines are the next level Delta machines. And I'm sure you're here because you've seen some of the specs that they have on their website for the Q1 Pro and for the T1 Pro, and their aim is to just be the fastest machines out there. And Delta is the perfect way to try to do this, is because there's 3 motors kind of pushing the motion systems, whereas in the other motion systems there's typically 2. Sometimes there's 4, but we won't get into all those details. These things are fast. And the reason why I opted for the T1 Pro first over the Q1 Pro, the Q1 Pro is a $1,500 machine. Not that that's expensive nowadays for high-end 3D printers. There's plenty of them in that price range now. But the specs of that thing are insane. And this machine, at least at the time of the recording, is around $650. And the specs are not that far off in terms of speed and claims. So that's why I think this is important. You're paying a lot less money for almost the same specs. And that's why I wanted to see if the quality's up there, how this compares to the previous machines that I've used, so on and so forth. So for this video, I prepared a bunch of prints. Some of the prints that I did on this machine aren't here because either my daughter takes them or I gave them away as gifts, whatever it might be. But I held on to these things, and I promised my kid that I was going to give them to him after this video. So we have them at least for this. So I have some prints to show you, some testing that I did to compare it to other machines, as well as a list of cons and pros, obviously, because if you can get over the cons, you're going to love the pros. So that's what we're going to do today, and let's jump right into the cons. But first, let me tell you a little bit about PCBWAY. Do you need PCBs, 3D printing, CNC machining, or even injection molding? PCBWAY has you covered. Their services are very affordable. I was honestly surprised. It's no wonder makers all over the world trust them for their projects. Fast, reliable, easy to use, PCBWAY helps bring your ideas to life. Be sure to check out the link in the description for the latest deals, and a big thanks to PCBWAY for sponsoring today's video. All right, I moved the camera a little bit so you can see more of just how large this machine is. It's not necessarily that big in the horizontal space, but vertical space, it is very tall. I know machines now with AMS units and CFS units on top of the machines also do get around this height. And just as a comparison, the K2 Plus, for example, with the CFS is actually about the same, if not even a little bit taller, but that has multicolor. This does not. So just as an initial statement here, I guess this could be seen as a con. Be conscious of the space that this machine takes up. Because of its motion system and the fact that the filament spool is inside of the machine, if you're going to be trying to put this on a rack system, for example, you might have to put this either on the top or on the middle without a top rack. So just keep that in mind. A more traditional Core XY machine or even a bed slinger takes up way less vertical space than a Delta machine. So if you are in the market of this, keep in mind where you're going to put this in advance before this thing arrives and you're kind of, struck by its just general size and you won't know where to put it. So maybe as number 1 here, just because I kind of jumped the gun, is the funky size of this machine. And mostly all Delta machines have this, taller than wider aspect to them, and just something to keep in mind if you're going to be trying to put this, whether it's in your print room or just in your, wherever you're going to have this printer. Maybe you're going to have more than one, or maybe you're going to put this in a farm. Just keep the size in mind. But before that, the number 1 thing, and this is no secret, this machine is really, really loud. There's no other way to put it. They try to tell you on the website and the marketing that it's not that loud. Let me tell you, it is loud. I've had 73 machines come through here in the studio that I've tested somewhere here in this area. Most of them on this desk right here And when I test machines, I'm working right off to the side over here, and the machines that I'm currently testing, working through, are on this desk. And let me tell you, it was really difficult, if not even impossible, to work next to this machine. Even if it's not the volume of the fan, which it pretty much sounds like a vacuum cleaner, it is the pitch of the fan. And I know there's modifications you can do. I wanted to keep it stock for this particular testing so that, you know, I can relay back to you what it's like. There's a lot that this thing has going for it, but if volume is going to be a problem, if this is going into your bedroom or a living space that you're sharing, probably not going to be the right move, at least not in its stock configuration, at least not with the amount of cooling power that the fans provide on this thing. So size is something to keep in mind, and the volume to keep in mind. Most of the time, if you're in an engineering grade environment or a school environment, whatever that might be, or your environment where there's plenty of people or lots of other noises, that might not matter at all. You're going to know this thing is there. You're going to know that this thing is there even in the next room. So just keep those two things in mind. Those are the two top cons that I have for this machine. Volume, very loud, and the sizing, the funky sizing. All right, then we get into a little bit of details here. If I'll go ahead and open the door, right on top there you see the filament spool is inside, and I actually really like that. However, the holder that they designed, the metal rod that holds the thing, is just very funky. It makes it feel very inexpensive. I don't want to say it's not thought out. That's like just disrespectful to some engineer that built that. But there's just something about it. I think it's not the best design that they could have had, and it makes the machine feel a little bit cheaper. It's not flimsy, but it's just kind of annoying to do. You need both hands to kind of pull this rod out, put the filament up there, pull the rod in, aim it perfectly through the filament spool so it gets into the hole. It's just a little bit awkward to put filament up there and to use, and I think that could be improved dramatically. I'm sure that there's already 3D prints redoing that mounting. I'm sure that was outside of the volume, people trying to fix the volume. I guarantee you that's the number 2 thing that people tried to kind of fix on this machine. Is it functional? Absolutely. Is it totally fine? Technically speaking, probably yes. But is it one of those quirks that other machines don't have? Definitely. So that's definitely on my cons list. Then we have, there's no lever on the extruder for manual feeding or filament removal. I would say the majority of 3D printers that I have used and am using on a daily basis have some way to heat up the nozzle and then pull a lever, push a button, and pull the filament out. There's obviously plenty out there that automate that sequence as well, especially ones that have cutters and so on and so forth. But this machine doesn't have that, and it does have automation to do it. But if you just have something hot or you need to quickly swap out a filament, just sometimes pushing on a knob or a lever and pulling the filament out yourself, pushing another one back in, whether it's before a print, during a print, whatever that might be, just seems like it's one of those things that should have been there and it's not. They probably don't want you pushing on it too much because you could easily move the machine out of alignment for like a stop during a print. But when you're not starting, or when you're not doing that in the middle of a print rather, it just seems like a little bit of a hassle to, you know, have everything heated and waiting, but then you have to, you know, go through the system to kind of wait for the filament to either come out or wait for the filament to kind of go in, where if it was already hot, I could just push the lever, push the filament down, and at least have the filament at the nozzle already so I don't have to wait for it to purge. So another con that I personally have is I wish there was some way to have a push button or a lever on the extruder to help us either remove or feed filament. Another one of those things where it's kind of just a quirky thing. It exists, it's there in the system, but it just doesn't feel like it's the best use of it. Kind of similar to the way that the filament is held in place. Then I have needs more and better tuned profiles for high quality options and not just fastest possible options. Technically speaking, I don't want to go back on this that I wrote, but this thing is marketed towards going fast. And a lot of the profiles that you can choose, whether it's in their slicer or Orca slicer, are geared towards going fast. And when you have the full build plate built out, it goes so fast that sometimes it tends to knock something over or just not have the best of quality. And I did make sure that I printed everything in the stock profiles, just so you guys know. And I did have some failures here and there, like I typically do on a bunch of other machines, but you just restart and kind of learn from them, whether it's some adhesion or you need to clean the build plate, whatever it may be. I'm not going to cancel that type of stuff out. But in my opinion, much like some other machines that I've recently tested, this machine, I would love to see more and just better high quality profiles for the folks that do want the option to print something in draft mode really quickly, but also want something to be really high quality. Like, I know this thing can do a 9-minute benchy, which is incredible, but I also want to see kind of like maybe a 20 or 30-minute benchy and just have it do a perfect job, just to kind of illustrate that this motion system can be super accurate and is super accurate. That's what I'd love to see. Maybe that's just a nitpick, but that's a con of mine right there. And then the final one I have on this list is that there's an always on fan. I don't know if you can hear it, maybe, let's see. But there is an audible fan, a pretty audible fan down at the bottom. It might even be multiple. I know it's got to be for the power supply. But I have plenty of machines behind me here that when they're idle, they don't make any noise. And I always mention this when they do, because it's nice to kind of forget that they're there. And then when you need it, when the machine is in operation, then it turns on. And then the fans running aren't an issue. They're not even a concern because you know you're using the machine. Whereas here, it's idle. It definitely doesn't need to do any of those things. You know, with the screen dimming, the lights should probably dim and maybe the fans should all turn off. That's just my opinion, especially because this machine's running Clipper. I know those things are possible, and maybe just the fact that they use some power supply that doesn't have a fan that has any kind of control to it. It's an always on fan. So those are the cons. They're not necessarily huge deal breakers. They're more like, hey, keep this in mind when you're purchasing this machine. And that's kind of cool for a 3D printer nowadays, because sometimes there's some, you know, really big gotcha in these things, and this one I didn't really have any. Together, they kind of make it seem like, yeah, the price is right for this machine. This doesn't necessarily aim to be the most premium machine ever, but these cons aren't that bad. And if you can get over the cons, well, you're really going to like this next section. So let's just dive right into the pros. Let's go. I totally forgot a con while I was putting everything away here. This does not have a hardened steel nozzle or gearing, so it's not going to last very long printing any kind of abrasives like wood or carbon fiber or glass-filled fiber. And for an enclosed machine like this, just spending a couple extra dollars to have a hardened steel nozzle and gearing by the manufacturer would have been amazing. So something you need to look out for if you want to print a bunch of carbon fiber or glass-filled materials. Okay. All right, now let's jump into the pros that I found while I've been testing this machine. Well, the number one is probably going to be pretty obvious. This thing is super fast. I have an exclamation mark there. It's extremely fast. It's almost half the time on large prints, which is amazing. I think what they set out to do, they definitely did with this machine, as long as you can get past the cons. As far as the speed goes, the test that I did was I filled the entire build plate with one of these launchers, this helicopter launcher, blade launcher, whatever you want to call these. I don't remember the actual name of them, but super fun print. And it literally takes up the entire build plate. It's kind of a long print, I believe about 6 or 7 hours on the X1 Carbon, just as an example. I know it's a reliable benchmark printer. And this machine did it in less than half that time. Actually, the first one was less than half the time. The second one, when I changed filament, had that issue where it was just going so freaking fast. It was knocking things over, so I slowed it down a bit. So it was a little bit less than half speed, but and for reliable prints. But at that point, I printed 3 sets of them in I think around 4 hours a piece, which is just so much faster than the status quo, and the status quo is really fast. So that's what this thing is all about. That's what it's for. If you are the type of person that needs to quickly iterate, or you're working on the design and you want to just get, you know, make sure the thing is working before you do a quality print or send it off to something like PCBWAY to get it made or whatever it might be, this is definitely for that. It's to get things out quickly. I know that at the top speed, you're not necessarily going to get the absolute most perfect. There has to be some way, you know, to mitigate its speed, and you can see it in some of the tests that I did. But the fact that the quality is close enough to being amazing, that's what this thing's all about. Just super outright fast. And if this is the T1 Pro that's this impressive, I can only imagine what the Q1 Pro can do, and I'm really excited to see if I have the opportunity to test that machine after this one. The next thing I have is that it has an internal spool holder. I know I mentioned the con about the actual mounting, but I personally love the fact that there is a spool holder on the inside of this machine. It's something that I always wanted for my V400 because there's just so much more space to put an additional thing up at the top, which, by the way, you can do. I'll get to that later. But the fact that this thing is enclosed, which means the chamber is going to be hot, whether you're printing ABS or whatever it might be, that the filament spool actually gets dried while it's in there, unless, of course, it's all open for PLA or something similar. But the fact that it's up there is awesome. For a lot of my other machines, I tend to put filament on the inside. Currently, my Magneto X, for example, has the ability to print from the inside of the machine for ABS prints. I think it's just a brilliant idea. I think more printers should incorporate the filament inside of the machine because just they have more space nowadays. Kind of like the new Prusa Core 1 machine did, where it's inside of the side of the machine. This does it in a similar way, puts it in an idle spot at the top, and I think that that's awesome. The next thing I have here is that the fact that it's enclosed, and this is kind of a two-parter. The second part of the fact, the cool benefit that's enclosed, unlike the Super Racer or the V400, is that it has a glass door. And I know that doesn't mean much to some people, like for example, Vorons don't have glass doors and they're great. But at the same time, something about the glass just gives you that feeling of quality, and that's always just a huge plus. It makes you feel like whatever you bought is a high-quality item, and I like it. The back panels that you see on the sides here are tinted, and they do have quick connects on the bottom and top, as well as two pieces of hardware in the center. Technically speaking, if you really wanted to constantly remove these, you could probably do without the center and just have it on quick releases. But something about the vibration there and the fact that this thing is going to make even more noise, I'm going to keep mine there. It's just two screws. You can really easily take the panels off, and that's a huge plus. There's no stickiness, there's no glue, none of that stuff. So enclosure and the fact that it uses glass on the front is definitely a huge pro for me. The next thing we have on here is that it works with Orca Slicer out of the box. You don't have to do anything. It runs Clipper. Orca Slicer already has profiles for this machine. Like I mentioned, I wish there was more profiles, but you can easily tweak them yourself and set them up yourself, just like with any other machine. And I highly encourage you to tune pretty much every machine to the majority of the filaments that you guys have, at least the different types of filaments. It'll help with quality big time. But I love the fact that Orca supports it and it supports Orca, because I can open up one slicer, and from that one slicer use majority of my machines except for just one or two of them. And that's my favorite. They have their own slicer, which is based off of Orca or Bamboo Slicer. I don't know which one is based off of one of those two. And it's really similar, if not exactly the same. But the fact that I don't have to change my current slicer that I'm working on for every other machine and use it for this is a huge benefit. Good job, FLSun. The next thing is there is an app that comes with this machine, and it lets you monitor things remotely. Now, I'm no security expert. I know there's a lot of this speculation going around this, but at the time of recording right now, they have this application that as long as this thing is sitting on your home network, you can actually see a camera feed and you can control the machine, which is fantastic. It's best of both worlds. It's not using a cloud service for your prints. It's using the local network, but it is also communicating with the machine to some degree with this app remotely. So like I said, if you guys know more details about how that actually functions, I would actually love to learn more, whether it's an article or someone actually knows how this works, how it functions. But from the user perspective, the machine is sitting on local network doing its thing. To some degree, the cloud service that you get from the app lets you remotely connect to it, stop and pause prints. You can watch the camera, and that is huge because I can set up a print. I can go somewhere outside of my network. Let's see how the machine is doing. Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, you know what? I should probably pause it until I get back. Pause, stop, whatever it might be. That is a huge benefit, and I know on some other really popular machines, you can't use LAN mode and still get the cloud aspect alongside with it. So like I said, I'd love to learn more, but for now, from the user standpoint, that functionality is awesome, and I'm leaving it on the Pro section. And then the final thing that I have on here is that there is a filament pass-through on top. And that's important because you might be currently drying a filament, or if you have a larger spool or a funky spool size, or maybe a damaged spool or a sample, whatever it might be, you don't actually have to use that internal holder. There is a pass-through hole on the top that goes straight through, so you can actually put whatever you might want on the top, whether it's a giant 3 kilogram or 5 kilogram spool, or something funky, or your heater or filament dryer unit right at the top, and just go from there. You don't have to take it out of there and put it inside if it's sealed or something like that. You can actually see a 5 kilogram spool right here, and I have it on top of my V400, and that's how I use that V400 for long prints. I use the 5 kilogram spools, and this thing is right there with it. You can put that on top, plenty of space on top, sturdy top place to put something on. The printer doesn't actually move that much like some other machines, and then just go straight downward, which is awesome. So there you go. Those are some of the major pros. There's some little things on both sides here and there that I didn't mention, but generally speaking, that's what I really like about this machine, and the things that I don't like about the machine. So now that we've known, now that we know the cons and the pros, how about we take a closer look at some of the prints, and then we'll go to conclusion from there. Let's go. All right, I think we should start with the prints with the benchmark style prints. And this was the first one I did in our live stream. This is a 9-minute benchy, and as you can see, it definitely has its issues. This was a brand new filament that I've never tried before, and I took it right out of the box. And I suspected that this might have been a wet filament, because you can kind of see just how droopy it is. So without making any changes, I went and got the same spool that I've been using on a bunch of the testing that I've done on the rest of my machines, and this is the same exact file, same exact everything, just with the same filament as I've been using. And I would say that this is an amazing result for 9 minutes. This is showing you the top speed. You can slow this thing down and get your details back in, but if you want just the fastest thing that this can do, 9-minute benchy, I think this is an incredible result. The fact that this isn't the worst thing in the world for such a fast thing, I think that's the point. It's not the point to make the perfect benchy. I think everything can do that with time, but the fact that it can do this in 9 minutes is very impressive to me. So I would also like to do one in about 30 minutes or so, and just see how pristine you can do it in 30 minutes, just as an example. And it should be able to do so if this is what you get in 9. So along with that, I've been doing these toasters on the rest of the machines in the same filament. So that is what this is for. This is called a torture toaster. And let's take a look at the outside first. You can see that it actually looks really, really good. This is going absolutely full speed. And I believe this was the fastest toaster out of the rest. I don't remember the exact time off the top of my head, so I'm not going to lie to you, but it was definitely fast. Let's take a look at the stringing. There is a little bit of wisps here and there. Nothing serious. Some of the other machines I've been testing have done that as well. Behind this door right over here, we have the overhang test, and if you can tell, it is doing an amazing job cooling this machine going this fast, and that's really why it's so loud. It's to give you maximum air so that you can print fast. Is it absolutely flawless? No, but it is really, really good for how fast this thing went and for just how much cooling it has. So this is an amazing overhang test result. If we look at this paddle right here, you can see how uniform all these are. They're not droopy. That's also great. And now we come to the other important side. This is this shows you the interference between different pieces, and as you can see by this one, the 5, 4, and 3 are very, very loose. It looks like I put this one in there backwards because they do come out of here. I've actually only seen that one time on the 0.5 millimeter on other machines, but this one is very, very loose. And funny enough, the 0.1 is stuck in here. I can't move it. So can you move all of these little slats? Yes, but it looks like these 3 are loose, and that's something that's unique to this machine. I don't think this print is sloppy at all, and I haven't seen any of this similar issue in anything else that I've printed, but on this particular test, this is unique. We do have decent clearance, but for whatever reason, it is extremely loose. This too is pretty good. You can see it's moving very freely, but the one is jammed up, and you can't get this thing to move. I think I'd probably end up breaking it if I actually forced it to try. Yeah, it looks like it's fused right on here on this side, and I actually don't think this is a bad result. All right. Oh, and here's the bottom. So nice and smooth. yeah, just a good toaster result, especially for something that's printing so fast. I think that's the strength of this machine. All right, sticking with the PLA theme, I try to focus on you know, seeing how we can test the theory of why these are too loose. So I found this awesome file. I'm going to try to link this down below. This is one of those helicopter launcher things where you used to pull a string and it used to fly up directly into a tree. You'd lose it first pull. You can print a bunch of different blades. They come in a bunch of different sizes. Great design. So what this thing does is inside there is a ton of different gears, you know, when you spin the bottom of this thing, it basically spins the top significantly more. So the reason why I thought this would be a perfect test is because this is a bunch of different filaments together going in with gearing to test the interference and just how all of this goes together. You can see on the inside there is also gearing, and they interfere with those gears. So you kind of spin this thing gently, try to kind of align it. There we go. And we push, and there we go. It's a little loud, but this thing is perfectly functional. So now if we throw a blade on here, see ya, and I'll show you how this works in a second. Here, let me step back and show it to you from a distance. Woo! All right, anyway, awesome, fun print, really fun. And like I said, I printed it 3 times and all of them fit together. All of them are functional. And they're really cool to just print for somebody, give them as a gift, whatever it might be. Toys for tots, kids, all that fun stuff. So, can you print on this thing super fast, full build plate, put it together and have it work? So far, yes, I like that. All right, then I went ahead and tested the ABS functionality because it is an enclosed machine and it can print really hot, and that's fantastic. So the reason why you're seeing 2 here is because similar to the X1C, the first one went ahead and peeled away from the bed on me. I don't know if you could tell from this angle, but this started to peel up and basically started dragging at the very top of the end. I went ahead and stopped it a couple layers short because it was just, you know, just crashing into itself up here, and I knew it was just going to be a disaster. Otherwise, everything is functional. It looks decent, but I figured because of this, much like the X1C, I'll give it another shot. So I'll put some glue on the build plate for ABS. It likes that on PEI. And I went ahead and redid it, and it came out amazing. It's not as loose as some of the other machines that I've tested. It's nice and solid print. The top looks good, the bottom looks good, and most importantly, let this focus, take a look at the side here in the light. There's no VFA. There is a nice little texture going on there, and this is, by the way, the same spool of ABS that I have been using on the other machines. And just to compare, I did bring out the X1C just to kind of show you the difference in finish that you're going to get from something like this. So the top one is the X1C, and as you can see in the light here, right there, the X1C has way more of a VFA on flat sides here, whereas this machine, the T1 Pro, has just kind of like a texture, and it looks really nice. Solid. This one didn't peel whatsoever, so maybe the chamber was just a little bit too cold last time, kind of like the X1C. So can you print ABS on this thing? Yes, for sure. I like to print this close hanger because I use them here for my merch, but also it's just a nice print to test whether this thing can stick to the bottom, whether it's going to curl, and how it works with a print-in-place object like this. So, in my opinion, this is a success. All right, those are the prints. Let's go back up to the desk, and, well, let's go into the conclusion. Let's go. All right, so that is the T1 Pro and my experience with it. Now, as a disclaimer, this was sent to me in exchange for a review. I don't take any kind of payments or sign contracts with printer manufacturers for this type of stuff. The only money that I could ever make from this stuff is affiliate sales. So if you're ever interested in buying something that I'm showing off here and you're into it, please check the links down below. They are affiliate links and I get a tiny cut out of it. They don't cost you anything. They just send you to the manufacturer website for the purchase. purchase, and that's how I operate this whole channel. There's also a Discord channel that's completely free. You can jump in there and chat with like-minded people, show off your prints, troubleshoot your machines, just join the community. Lots of contests in there, giveaways, all kinds of fun stuff in our Discord. And if you want to support the channel in some other way, we also have Patreon, where you can support there, see videos just like this one early, as well as on my own website, 3dprintsos.com, where I sell cool merch kind of like this, as well as many others. I sell some consoles that I've been hand building and 3D printing, so on and so forth. That's a great way to support the channel, as well as getting something in for you, whether it's for a gift or for yourself, whatever it might be. But I want to thank you guys, and as a conclusion for this machine, I just want to say that there's definitely something about this that's, especially for like an engineer type of person or someone that wants to iterate quickly and needs that brute force, that brute speed. You don't have to use it. Just like a car that you buy, you're never going to necessarily go top speed in that thing, but knowing that you can, that's what makes it amazing. And now that I've seen this kind of mid point in a Delta for FLSun, I would love to see what that higher end seems like, and maybe there is a good enough reason to spend the extra money, about 3 times the amount, to get to that next step. I don't know, but I do like where this thing is at. And the question, I guess, would be is, would I replace the V400? That is actually a really good question, because if the question is the stock V400 without an enclosure, I would say no. I would pick this just because this can print more filament. It's meant for it out of the box. It has some better automations, like leveling, that type of thing. But if it was just for PLA, I might stick with the V400 because of its larger size. They do cost the same. This one is about 260 on the build plate. That one's around 300. So if the size is something, then you might want to pick something else. But otherwise, if you want an enclosure, especially if you like the idea that you're going to put this together, it is a very easy build, as you can see in the live stream that we did. This is probably the machine for you. And I'm pretty excited that it exists and gives us more options. And most importantly, continues to push the boundaries of 3D printing. If not with anything else, it's at least with speed. And that's pretty cool. All right, that's everything for me for today. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, I'll see you all in the comments. Later.